Hey, it's Drybear. Continuing a series of covering all of the classes available in the early access version of Path of Exile 2, launching just 4 days from now. Starting with the class that kind of has my heart right now and always has, I've loved monks. I also love like spears, staves, bow staves, quarter staves, all of those, anything with a stick really. But this is going to be your monk class. Now, if you're looking for the dexterity-based melee fighter, there is another class that's not launching with early access that is looking like to be more of the true assassin style, rogue style class. But this is going to be your martial artist. The monk uses primarily a quarterstaff. Currently in early access, there are 21 quarterstaff abilities, and unlike the other casters, the monk does have a mixture of elemental effects and also melee effects, and the elements are not like the fire, ice, and lightning that sorcerer has. It's not like chaos, occult, and bone that the witch has. The monk actually has ice, lightning, and wind, which is super cool. So you'll see those three elements being used throughout the kit, and because they are kind of more a dexterous style melee fighter, they focus more on combos and mixing attacks together, and they do have the ever popular flicker strike effect where you can blink on every attack, so you can warp around doing attacks. You can add in projectiles, you can add in elemental effects, so they are kind of like your avatar style martial artist class for Path of Exile 2. Now, it's actually kind of hard to describe the monk in very short words. I think monk is more of a feel style character, and that the more you play it, the more you feel it, the more it feels good. A lot of their abilities have some movement component associated with it, which means you have tons of extra mobility, flips, dodges, teleports, and you have projectiles and things like that. And all of those can be mixed together, combining the different skills that you have with the different support gems in the game, and you can create some really fun combos that make it kind of like a fighting game style character with all kinds of trigger effects, explosions. And this is just by the monk by itself, not including the other options that you can include from other classes. Now, I think the monk is probably going to be one of the biggest sleepers in Path of Exile 2 as a class overall, because they have so many interactions between elemental magics and physical attacks that it means that all of the other classes can mix together with the monk, and the monk can also mix together with the other classes. For example, you could use all of the extra elements, since they do have ice, lightning, and wind on top of all of their normal attacks. Being able to use abilities and supports from things like the sorceress or the witch make perfect sense for the monk, especially if you're going for the Invoker Ascendancy. But on top of that, also, there's tons of other effects from like mercenary and warrior that work really well with the monk too, because all of those melee attacks fit together. For example, there is not only the movement abilities that work great in combination with some of the warrior skills, but on top of that, they also have an ability called their bell, which they will summon a bell down onto the ground, and when the bell lands on the ground, when you deal damage to the bell, it pulses out extra damage. You can even cause it to do different elemental effects on it as well, but you can do things like going for rapid fire effects from a mercenary's crossbow onto the bell to make it just spam explode all over the ground, which creates some really cool combinations for the monk specifically. And I think if you're someone that just likes having less of the upfront burst damage of the warrior and less of like the strategy element of the mercenary, you want to have more of the fast flying martial artist style of the monk, I think is a great pickup for you and should fit that role perfectly. For early access, monk will have 2 ascendancy available, and then for launch there will be a third one. But there's 2 primary that you'll be able to choose from the early access version of the game. One focused more on the elemental side, and one more of a shadow style dark monk. The Invoker is focused on using elements, and I think this is closer to like a wind, an airbender, an earthbender, a firebender, right? Being able to bend those elements. They focus a lot on being able to use spells and elemental effects, mix those into your martial arts, and then create projectiles, explosions, shatters. And this is going to be, I think, a lot of really cool combinations for being able to use the other classes like sorceress and witch in them. They also gain the state of the avatar state, which we've seen a little bit of, but I'm sure once you start working in other abilities and combinations into the avatar state with this ascendancy class, you'll create a really cool bender style character. The second ascendancy is the Acolyte of Chayula, which is the dark monk. It's kind of like a D&D style shadow monk or Way of the Shadow, and they create a lot of really cool effects that don't exist anywhere else, primarily being able to shift in and out of shadows, being able to see things that aren't normally there. They're kind of related to the breach mechanic, if you are aware of that, where the breach opens up and reveals, the upside down style monsters. The Acolyte of Chayula will be able to access these kind of dark realms and access mechanics and effects that no other class can because of their attachment to Chayula, which to me is such a really cool concept, because we know that we have all those different endgame activities in the game, but being able to tie in Ascendancy to the Breach style mechanic, creating that underworld style character that's a mix of martial arts and the darkness, I think is really cool, and will create some probably really cool cosmetic combinations like skinergies with the skins that you have and the character style as well, which is a good mix of two Ascendancies to pick from. I'm actually very excited about the combinations that you can create with Monk, and also will probably serve as a good foundation for many of the builds. I know, at least in Path of Exile 1, a couple of the classes are used more than others just because of their attachment and, you know, variety that they're able to link into for other classes, especially once you choose your lab and your Ascendancies and put everything together into a complete build. But I love Monk classes in general, and I think this is a great iteration of it, and the fact that it's not just, you know, punch, kick, jump, flip. They've been able to move into other elemental effects, air, you know, the Avatar style, Bender style magic, where you can bring in different effects of elements on top of it, being able to have summonable deployables like the bell create secondary effects that you can create with the Monk style, or you can go straight into the fighting style, martial artist style, and hopefully the third Ascendancy that we get when the game fully launches is more inside of that kind of like bow staff, martial artist, quarterstaff style character that fits that aesthetic. Now, I still haven't decided on my starting class for Path of Exile 2 Early Access. I'd like to dive in deep to one class at a time, and I'll probably will get to all of them by the time we're done for launch and everything, and I'm greatly considering starting with Monk, but there's just so many great choices to choose from. But again, the reason I like Monk in general is it's an aesthetic that works for me, and also the combinations between the other classes make sense. And I think you probably will want to start with the core of Monk, which is taking your 21 quarterstave abilities as base and working ways to combine them together. Killing Palm, Glacial Cascade, Frozen Locust, Staggering Palm, and of course Tempest Bell. And I think the bell itself will have so many interactions, not only by yourself, but also in a party as well, which could be really, really cool to put everything together. So I think you start with that core, but then it opens up so much to branching out to other support gems, but also other weapon abilities and skills to combo into it. You might find that you actually have some really cool options from pulling in deep areas of the skill tree or of the skill gems from other classes into the kit of Monk, and that work flawlessly because they're so flexible and versatile. You could go pure one element, you can go multiple element, you could mix the elements together, freeze the target solid and then break them with lightning or knock them back with wind, be able to summon a bell and then suck everyone in with wind and deal damage onto the bell to cause it to explode, or even just have someone in your party that can interact with that in a strong way as well. I think those kind of mechanics really play nicely into the playground, you know, sandbox style of Path of Exile, where you get to jump in, you know, just mess around, break things and try things out that may normally not make sense or may not be that clear to you when you start out, but once you get to the end, you find something that's really, really fun to play. And I also get a strong duelist vibe from the Monk as well, but it has a fresh take on it as well. So if you like that dexterity style class, this is probably going to be your best bet, at least until the other class that isn't released in early access comes out, and you'll have a lot of ways to play around with it. So if you're looking for that kind of dexterity melee martial artist, but has a lot of really cool mixes with the other elements, then Monk is a great choice for you. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.